The large silver ship hung in Earth's orbit like a shining coin. It was the year 2157, and after decades of sending signals into space, humans finally had visitors. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Peaceful Resolution, Earth's diplomatic vessel. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. As the leader of humanity's first contact team, the weight of history pressed on his shoulders. "Sir, they're hailing us again," said his communications officer. Deho nodded. "Open the channel." The screen lit up, showing a being with bluish skin and 4 eyes. The universal translator had been working for the past week, turning the aliens' clicks and whistles into understandable words. "Human vessel, this is Ambassador Lix of the Galactic Confederation. We will dock in 30 minutes. Prepare your delegation." "We are ready, Ambassador Lix," Deho replied. "We look forward to peaceful talks." When the screen went dark, Deho turned to his team. "Remember, we represent all of Earth today. Let's make a good impression." The docking bay was large and bright. Deho stood with 5 other humans, including scientists and diplomats. The airlock opened with a hiss, and 3 aliens walked through. Lix, the leader, was taller than the others, with strange markings on its face. "Welcome to our ship," Deho said with a small bow. "We come in peace and friendship." Lix studied him with all 4 eyes. "We have studied your transmissions for years. Your species is puzzling." "In what way?" asked Deho. "Your history is full of violence, wars, conquests, battles. Yet now you claim to seek peace. It seems inconsistent." Deho smiled. "We have learned from our mistakes. Our history taught us that violence creates more problems than it solves." Lix made a sound like stones grinding together, which the translator identified as laughter. "Interesting. My species, the Vraxians, believe strength is proved through combat. The strongest lead, as it should be." "We once thought that way too," Deho said, "but we found better paths." The meeting moved to a conference room. Maps of the galaxy appeared on screens, showing hundreds of inhabited worlds united in what they called the Galactic Confederation. The Confederation includes 27 species across 500 worlds, Lix explained. Most joined after military defeats. Some joined willingly to avoid conquest. "And what are you offering Earth?" Deho asked carefully. "Membership," Lix said. "Your technology is primitive, but your system has valuable resources, and we are curious about your species. What would membership mean for us?" "Protection, knowledge, trade, in exchange for loyalty and some resources." Deho looked at his team before responding. "We appreciate your offer, but Earth would only join as an equal partner. We won't be conquered or controlled." Lix's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, bold words from a species that could be destroyed with one ship. The room grew tense. Deho kept his voice calm. "If that's a threat, Ambassador, then these talks are over. We believe in solving problems through understanding and cooperation, not force." "Not a threat," Lix said quickly. "An observation. Your confidence is unexpected." "Humanity has confidence in peace," Deho replied. "Not because we're afraid to fight, but because we've learned better ways to solve problems." Lix studied the humans for a long moment. "The Confederation Council will find your species fascinating. Your philosophy is unusual in the galaxy." "Is that good or bad?" asked one of the human scientists. "Unknown," Lix replied. "But interesting. The Vraxians respect strength. Perhaps there are different kinds of strength we have not considered." As the meeting ended, Deho knew this was just the beginning. Humans were stepping onto a galactic stage filled with species that might not share their values. "We will return tomorrow," Lix said at the airlock. "The Confederation must decide if Earth is ready to join." Deho nodded. "We'll be here, and Ambassador. Violence isn't the answer. We hope the Confederation can understand that." "We shall see, human," Lix replied. "We shall see." 3 months had passed since first contact. Earth had joined the Galactic Confederation after weeks of careful talks. Now, the huge circular room of the Galactic Council buzzed with the sounds of 27 different species. Jiwu sat at the human desk, watching the other representatives. As Earth's main diplomat, she had to learn quickly about alien cultures. Some species looked almost human. Others were very different. Floating gas clouds, insect-like beings, and creatures made mostly of light. "First time at council can be overwhelming," said a voice beside her. Jiwu turned to see a tall, thin alien with golden skin that seemed to glow. This was Tallow, a Centaurian historian she had met during orientation. "There's so much to learn," Jiwu admitted. "So many different ways of thinking." Tallow nodded. "That's why I study history, to understand how species think." He paused. "Your human history fascinates me." "Why is that?" Jiwu asked. "It doesn't make sense," Tallow said, his large eyes blinking slowly. "Your early history shows constant fighting. Tribes against tribes. Nations against nations. Then suddenly, you start talking about peace as the only way." Jiwu smiled. "It wasn't sudden. We learned slowly through many painful lessons." The council meeting began. Representatives discussed trade routes, border disputes, and new scientific findings. Jiwu noticed how many issues were solved by threats or shows of strength. When she suggested talking through a mining rights issue, several representatives laughed. After the meeting, Tallow invited Jiwu to the station's viewing deck. They looked out at the stars and the huge ships moving between them. "I still don't understand humans," Tallow said. "You had weapons that could destroy your whole planet, but you didn't use them to conquer each other." "We came close to destroying ourselves several times," Jiwu explained. "We realized we had to find better ways." Tallow's skin changed color slightly, showing confusion. "But you're saying violence is not the answer. It seems naive. Sometimes violence is the only answer." "We don't believe violence is never the answer," Jiwu corrected. "Just that it's rarely the best answer. Violence doesn't solve problems. It creates new ones." Their conversation was interrupted by a loud alarm. The station's lights turned red, and a voice spoke over the speakers in multiple languages. "Emergency council meeting. All representatives report immediately." Back in the council chamber, a large hologram showed a star map. A section of it was highlighted in red. The council leader, a massive being from a heavy gravity world, spoke gravely. "The Krell Empire has taken 3 systems at the edge of Confederation space. They destroyed our outposts and are moving inward." Murmurs filled the room. Jiwu had read about the Krell, a warlike species that had refused to join the Confederation. They believed all other species existed to serve them. "We must respond with immediate force," said the Vraxian representative, pounding a fist on the table. "Crush them before they advance further." Many council members shouted agreement. Jiwu looked at the map and raised her hand. The room gradually quieted. "Earth is new here," she said, "but may I suggest we try communicating with the Krell first? Find out what they want." Laughter erupted from several representatives. "Typical human response," the Vraxian said. "The Krell want conquest. They communicate through strength, not words." "Even so," Jiwu insisted, "if we attack immediately, we close the door on peaceful solutions. War should be the last option, not the first." The council leader studied Jiwu. "The human perspective is unusual, but perhaps worth considering." As the debate continued, Tallow leaned toward Jiwu. "Now I see why your species confuses the galaxy. You prepare for war while hoping for peace." "Yes," Jiwu said quietly, "because hoping for peace without being prepared for war would be truly naive." On the hologram, the red area spread a little wider, bringing war ever closer. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with angry voices. The Krell Empire had taken over another star system, bringing their territory closer to the heart of the Confederation. "We must attack now," shouted the Vraxian representative, slamming his fist on the table. "Every day we wait, they grow stronger." Jiwu watched as other species joined the call for war. Most council members were standing now, their voices rising together in a demand for immediate action. The council leader raised all four of his arms, calling for quiet. "Earth's representative has requested to speak," he announced. "As newcomers to our confederation, perhaps they bring fresh ideas." Jiwu stood, feeling the eyes of alien representatives on her. Some looked curious, others dismissive. "Thank you," she began. "Earth suggests we try a different approach before rushing to war." "Different how?" asked a representative with scales and 6 eyes. "Let me introduce Sungmin, our diplomatic specialist," Jiwu said, gesturing to the man beside her. Sungmin stood. He was older than Jiwu, with calm eyes and a confident manner. "The Confederation has military strength," he said. "The Krell know this. But have we tried truly understanding what they want?" "They want to conquer us all," hissed a reptilian representative. Sung Min nodded. "Perhaps, but conquest usually has reasons behind it, resources, security, or something else. If we know the real reason, we can find alternatives." "What do you suggest?" asked the council leader, sounding interested despite the grumbling around the room. "3 things," Sung Min replied, holding up 3 fingers. "First, direct communication. Send diplomats to meet with Krell leaders. Second, economic pressure. The Krell trade with neutral systems. We can offer better deals to these systems. Third, show strength without using it. Move ships to our borders, but don't attack." The room erupted in discussion. Jiwu watched as some representatives nodded thoughtfully while others dismissed the ideas with angry gestures. "Your plan is weak," said the Vraxian. "The Krell will see it as fear." "Not if we do it right," Sung Min countered. "We aren't suggesting this because we're afraid to fight. We suggest it because it might work better than fighting." The council debated for hours. Finally, the council leader called for a vote. "The human proposal passes by a narrow margin," he announced. "We will try diplomacy while preparing our fleets. But know this, if the Krell attack again, we fight back immediately." As the meeting ended, Jiwu and Sung Min gathered their materials. Tallow approached them, his golden skin glowing faintly. "Interesting approach," the Centaurian historian said. "But I wonder if you understand the Krell. They believe other species exist to serve them or die. All the more reason to try understanding them better," Sung Min replied. "Even the most aggressive species usually have reasons for their actions." "I hope you're right," Tallow said. "Because if you're wrong, many will die while we talk." Over the next weeks, the human plan went into action. Diplomats were sent to the edge of Krell space, requesting meetings. Trade agreements with neutral systems were strengthened, and Confederation ships moved to defensive positions, visible but not attacking. In a secure communication room, Jiwu and Sung Min received updates from the diplomatic team. "The Krell have agreed to meet," said the lead diplomat on the screen. "They seem surprised by our approach. No one has tried talking to them before." "That's good news," Sung Min said. "What do they want?" "They demand systems rich in certain minerals. They say these are sacred to their religion." Jiwu looked thoughtful. "Can we offer alternatives? Other systems with similar minerals?" "We're exploring that now," the diplomat replied. "But there's something else. Our sensors detect large Krell fleets gathering. They might be planning something while we talk." After the call ended, Jiwu looked worried. "What if the others are right? What if we're just giving the Krell time to prepare an attack?" Sung Min's face was serious. "Then we tried. And trying peace first doesn't mean we're not ready for war. It just means we're giving wisdom a chance before violence." Outside the window, warships moved into position, glinting in the light of distant stars. 3 months passed. The diplomatic talks with the Krell continued, but progress was slow. In the Galactic Council, many representatives grew restless. The humans asked for time to talk, and we gave it, said the Vraxian ambassador. Meanwhile, the Krell build more ships and take more resources from the systems they've already captured. Jewu couldn't argue with this. Reports showed the Krell were indeed strengthening their position while the talks dragged on. After another long council meeting, Jiwu met with Sung Min in a quiet room overlooking the stars. The Krell negotiator keeps changing what they want, Sung Min said, rubbing his tired eyes. First it was mineral rights, then border systems. Now they want us to reduce our fleet. I think they're just playing for time. Like we are, Jiwu said with a sad smile. The difference is, we're genuinely trying to find peace. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the station, and announcements in multiple languages called all representatives to an emergency session. When they arrived at the council chamber, the mood was grim. The main screen showed 3 star systems highlighted in flashing red. The Krell have attacked, the council leader announced, his voice heavy. While their diplomats spoke of peace, their fleet struck 3 border worlds simultaneously. Images appeared on the screens, planets burning, ships exploding, people of various species fleeing. Jiwu felt sick as she watched. One of the attacked worlds was Proxima Centauri b, said a voice behind them. Jiwu turned to see Captain Han, commander of Earth's defense fleet. His face was tight with controlled anger. That's a human colony, Jiwu whispered, horror growing inside her. Han nodded grimly. 2,000 colonists. We're still counting the dead. The council erupted in angry shouts, many directed at the human representatives. Your peaceful approach has failed, cried the Vraxian. Thousands dead because humans insisted we talk instead of fight. Other representatives joined in, their voices becoming a storm of accusation. Jiwu stood, her hands shaking slightly. We gave peace every chance, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. We tried what no one else would try. Yes, it failed, but we had to try. And now? Asked the council leader. Captain Han stepped forward. Now we fight, he said simply. Earth has always understood that peace is the goal, but sometimes you must defend yourself and others. The council quickly authorized a full military response. Ships from all Confederation species would join together to push back the Krell advance. As the meeting ended, Tallow approached the human delegation. The historian's golden skin was dim with sadness. I am sorry about your colony, he said, but I must ask, do you still believe violence is not the answer? Han looked at the Centaurian. Violence wasn't the answer to the question we were asking. We wanted peace, but the Krell asked a different question. They asked if they could take what they wanted by force, and to that question, resistance is the only answer. Jiwu added, we gave diplomatic solutions every chance to work. We still believe they're better than war when possible, but we've never been naive about the need to defend ourselves and others. Tallow seemed to consider this. Perhaps I misunderstood your philosophy. It is not that you think violence is never necessary. It's that we don't see violence as a first choice or a source of pride. Sung Min finished. We see it as a sad necessity when all better options have failed. Later, on the command deck of his ship, Captain Han watched as the combined Confederation fleet prepared to move against the Krell. His face was solemn as he gave the order to depart. The Krell think they've seen human weakness, he said quietly. Now they'll learn what happens when humans are forced to be strong. The Krell attack force moved with confidence toward the Arcturus shipyard, one of the Confederation's largest shipbuilding facilities. Their fleet was massive, over 200 warships, their black hulls decorated with red symbols of conquest. The Krell commander, on the bridge of the largest ship, watched the shipyard grow larger on the viewing screen. No significant defenses detected, reported a Krell officer. The Confederation was not prepared. As expected, the commander said, their mistake was listening to the humans and their talk of peace. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Krell ship. The tactical display lit up with dozens of new contacts, appearing from behind Arcturus's moon. "What is this?" demanded the commander. Before anyone could answer, a communication came through on all channels. On the screen appeared a human woman in a dark uniform with silver stars on the collar. "Krell Fleet, this is Admiral Min of the Earth Defense Force. You are engaging in unprovoked aggression against the Confederation. Power down your weapons and withdraw, or we will be forced to defend this installation." The Krell commander laughed. "Humans, the peace talkers. You have no significant military." Admiral Min's face remained calm. "That was a misconception we allowed to continue. It ends today." The transmission cut off. The Krell commander was still laughing when the first shots hit his shields. The battle was unlike anything the Confederation had seen before. The human ships, which none of their allies knew existed in such numbers, moved with surprising speed and coordination. They didn't try to destroy the Krell ships, but targeted weapon systems, engines, and communications instead. On the Confederation command station, representatives from various species watched the battle in amazement. "Where did these human ships come from?" asked the Vraxian, his 4 eyes wide with surprise. "They spoke of peace, not war." Tallow, the Centaurian historian, looked thoughtful. "Perhaps we misunderstood. They spoke of peace as the better way, not the only way." The tactical display showed human ships protecting the shipyard while disabling Krell vessels one by one. When a Krell ship lost power or weapons, the humans moved on to the next target rather than destroying the disabled vessel. "Their tactics are unusual," said the council leader. "They could destroy those ships, but they choose not to." After 3 hours of fighting, the Krell fleet was in retreat. More than half their ships were disabled but not destroyed. The rest fled back toward Krell space. In the aftermath, Admiral Min's ship docked at the Confederation station. She met with the council, along with Captain Han and a human officer named June. "You deceived us," accused the Vraxian representative. "You pretended to have no military while building a powerful fleet." "We never said we had no military," Admiral Min replied calmly. "We simply emphasized our preference for peaceful solutions." "But when you build warships, it means you expect war," said another representative. Officer June stepped forward. "On Earth, we have a saying: hope for peace, prepare for war. We always hope to solve problems through understanding and cooperation. But we're not foolish enough to think everyone shares that hope." "Your tactics were strange," said the council leader. "You disabled ships rather than destroying them. Why?" "Human military doctrine evolved beyond simple destruction," Admiral Min explained. "We fight with precision and restraint. Killing when you don't have to isn't strength, it's waste." "And the ships you disabled?" asked Tallow. "Their crews will be rescued, treated well, and eventually returned to the Krell," Captain Han said. "They'll tell others how humans fight, and how we treat prisoners." The council members looked at each other, clearly confused by this approach. "I still don't understand," said the Vraxian. "If you can fight, why do you insist violence is not the answer?" Officer June smiled slightly. "Because we've learned there's a difference between fighting and solving problems. Violence is not the answer to most questions, but when someone forces violence upon us." He paused, looking at the battle display where disabled Krell ships drifted in space. "We answer decisively." 1 month into the war, the situation grew worse. Despite the early human victory at Arcturus shipyard, the Krell had numbers on their side. Their fleets pushed deeper into Confederation space every week. In the main war room of the Confederation command station, representatives from all member species gathered around a large holographic map. Red lights showed Krell-controlled systems spreading like a disease. "We can't match their numbers," said the Vraxian general. "For every ship we destroy, they have 3 more. Perhaps we need a new approach," suggested Jiwoo. "Something beyond traditional warfare." The Vraxian laughed. "More human peace talks. That worked so well last time." "Not peace talks," said a new voice. 2 humans entered the room, a tall man with serious eyes and a shorter woman with short black hair. "New tactics. This is Colonel Kita and Major Yuma. Admiral Min introduced them, our best tactical minds. Kaita stepped to the holographic display and waved his hand. The map changed, showing specific battle zones. The Krell fight to destroy, he explained. They aim to kill every enemy and demolish every ship. This wastes resources and time. Yuna continued, we propose fighting differently. Not to destroy, but to disable. We've seen your tactics at Arcturus, said the council leader. Effective, but small scale. How does this help against their numbers? Keita pressed a button, and the display showed detailed plans. Hit-and-run attacks focusing on communications, engines, and weapon systems. Capture ships instead of destroying them. Take prisoners instead of killing. The alien representatives looked confused. The Vraxian general spoke up. Why capture? Why not simply destroy? 3 reasons, Yuma answered, holding up 3 fingers. First, captured ships can be studied and used. Second, prisoners provide information. Third, and most important, it affects Krell morale. The room filled with doubtful murmurs. No one seemed convinced. I understand your doubt, Kita said calmly. But there's something else you should know. We've already tested these tactics in 3 small battles. We captured 14 Krell ships and over 200 prisoners. This silenced the room. Admiral Min nodded to Kita, who continued. From those prisoners, we learned about Krell's supply routes, communication codes, and command structure. We now know their fleet movements before they happen. The holographic display changed again, showing Krell shipping lanes. But prisoners must be fed, guarded, treated for injuries, protested one representative. It wastes resources. Major Yuma smiled slightly. We treat Krell prisoners well. Give them medical care, decent food, respect. Unlike how they treat Confederation prisoners. This is foolish, growled the Vraxian. Kindness to the enemy. Not kindness, Yuma corrected. Strategy. Word spreads among Krell soldiers about how humans treat prisoners. We've already seen 3 Krell ships surrender rather than fight to the death. The council leader looked thoughtful. A different kind of warfare. Over the next weeks, all Confederation forces began adopting human tactics. Special teams learned to disable rather than destroy enemy ships. Captured Krell received proper treatment. Information from prisoners helped predict Krell movements. At a field hospital near the front lines, Colonel Kita watched as doctors treated injured Krell alongside Confederation soldiers. A Vraxian officer approached him, looking uncomfortable. I still don't understand this approach, the Vraxian admitted. On my world, we would execute enemy wounded, not heal them. Kita nodded. On old Earth, many would have done the same. But we learned, each healed enemy is a message to other Krell. Each fair treatment is a weapon against their propaganda. And it works, asked the Vraxian, still doubtful. Yesterday, a Krell destroyer surrendered without firing a shot, Kite replied. The captain said he'd heard from other Krell how humans treat prisoners. He chose surrender over death. The Vraxian looked stunned. You fight with mercy. We fight to end the fighting, Ketat explained. Destruction continues the cycle of violence. Our goal is not to kill Krell, but to end the war permanently. For the first time, the tide of battle began to turn. Not through superior firepower, but through a way of fighting the galaxy had never seen before. The war had been raging for 6 months. The Confederation was no longer losing ground, but progress was slow. In a secure room deep within the Confederation headquarters, a new team had formed. Captain Hyun stood before a wall of screens showing Krell communications, captured documents, and prisoner interviews. As the head of human intelligence operations, he had spent weeks studying the enemy. The Krell Empire isn't what it appears to be, Hyun explained to the gathered officers from various species. Their leaders tell their people they fight for glory and religion, but the truth is different. He tapped a screen, showing images of luxury palaces on the Krell homeworld. Their emperor and high commanders live in wealth while common Krell suffer. They start wars to keep their people distracted from problems at home. Admiral Min nodded. So what do you propose, Captain? Psychological warfare, Han said simply. We fight not just their ships, but their lies. Over the next weeks, Han's plan took shape. Instead of bombing Krell worlds, human ships broadcast messages. They showed evidence of corruption among Krell leaders. They revealed how the religious texts had been changed to support the Empire's wars. Most importantly, they broadcast footage of captured Krell soldiers receiving good treatment, proper food, and medical care. This contradicted everything the Krell government told its citizens about the savage Confederation. In the council chamber, some representatives remained skeptical. Words and pictures won't stop their fleets, the Vraxian general complained. Perhaps not immediately, Hyun admitted, but already we're seeing results. He shared reports of increasing defections among Krell ships. Lower-ranking officers were beginning to question orders. On 3 Krell worlds, citizens had staged protests against the war. This is a new kind of battle, Han explained, not for territory, but for truth. Tallow, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. I understand now. Humans avoid violence not from weakness, but because you found more effective weapons. Exactly, Han nodded. Why destroy a Krell world when we can turn its people against their corrupt leaders? Why kill soldiers who could become allies? The council leader looked thoughtful. It's working, but slowly. The Krell leadership still controls most of their empire, which is why we need the next phase, said Hyun. The next day, a special human team infiltrated the Krell communication network. They sent proof of corruption directly to military commanders, showing how the Emperor had stolen resources meant for their fleets. When a major Krell battleship was captured with minimal damage, the humans did something unexpected. After gathering all useful intelligence, they repaired the ship and returned it to its crew. Why give back a powerful enemy ship? Asked the confused Vraxian general. Because that ship is no longer our enemy. Admiral Min explained. Its commander has seen the truth about his leaders and promised to spread that truth when he returns home. The strategy was risky but effective. Within weeks, reports came in of fighting between Krell ships, those loyal to the Emperor battling those who had turned against him. In a private meeting with Ji-woo and Tallow, Hyun showed intercepted Krell communications. An entire sector fleet has declared against the Emperor, he said. They're asking for peace talks with the Confederation. Remarkable, Tallow said, his golden skin glowing with excitement. You've turned their strength against them without destroying their civilization. Ji-woo smiled. That was always the goal. We didn't want to destroy the Krell, just stop their aggression. I must document this for future generations, Tallow declared. A new kind of warfare where the goal isn't destruction but transformation. As they spoke, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and the station's AI announced, all personnel to battle stations. Repeat, all personnel to battle stations. Hyun checked his communication device, his face growing serious. The Emperor has discovered the growing rebellion. He's launching an all-out attack on Confederation space. A desperate move, Ji-woo said quietly. And desperate enemies are the most dangerous, Hyun replied. The Krell Emperor stood on his command ship, his scaled face twisted with rage. Holographic displays showed parts of his empire in rebellion. His own commanders were turning against him. They believe human lies, he snarled to his loyal generals. We must show our strength now or lose everything. He pointed to a star map where a small blue-green planet orbited a yellow star. Earth, he said, the source of this infection. Destroy it, and the Confederation will lose its new strength. On his order, the Krell's largest weapon was prepared, a planet-killer missile designed to crack a world in half. Such weapons had been banned by the Confederation, but the Krell had built one in secret. The missile ship moved toward Earth, protected by 100 Krell warships. At Confederation headquarters, the attack was detected quickly. Admiral Min called an emergency meeting with all fleet commanders. "The Krell are making for Earth with their main fleet," she announced. "We've detected an unusually large energy signature among their ships." Captain Hyun's face was grim. "Intelligence from defectors confirms our worst fears. They have a planet-killer weapon." The room fell silent. Even the Vraxian general looked shocked. "We must intercept them," Admiral Min said firmly. "Commander Jin will lead our response fleet." Commander Jin stood. She was younger than most of the other officers, but her calm eyes showed experience beyond her years. "We'll need every available ship," she said. "This will be the largest battle of the war." Within hours, ships from all Confederation species gathered. At their center was the human flagship Resolute under Commander Jin's command. As the fleets approached each other near the edge of Earth's solar system, Jin addressed the combined forces. "The Krell Emperor is desperate," she told them. "He knows he's losing control of his empire. This attack is not about conquest anymore. It's about revenge." Jin's tactical display showed the approaching Krell ships. At the center of their formation was the missile carrier, easy to spot because of its unusual shape. "Our primary target is the carrier," Jin explained. "All other engagements are secondary. We must stop that weapon at any cost." The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. Krell ships fought with desperate fury, while Confederation forces followed human tactics, targeting engines and weapon systems to disable rather than destroy. On the Resolute, Jin watched the battle unfold. Despite their best efforts, the Krell formation held strong around the missile carrier, which moved steadily toward Earth. "We need a new approach," Jin said to her bridge crew. "The Krell expect us to attack from the front. So we won't." She ordered a daring maneuver. Half the fleet would continue the frontal assault, while Jin would lead a smaller group around the battle, approaching the missile carrier from behind. The plan was risky. Jin's ships would be exposed and outnumbered if detected too soon. But the Krell were focused on the main battle and didn't notice the smaller fleet until it was too late. Jin's ships broke through their rear defenses and closed on the missile carrier. The Krell realized the danger and turned to defend their weapon, but the confusion created an opening for the main Confederation fleet. Caught between two forces, the Krell formation broke apart. Jin's ship closed on the missile carrier, targeting its engines and launch systems with precision fire. "Their weapon is powering down," reported Jin's tactical officer. "The carrier is disabled." A cheer went through the Confederation fleet. The planet killer had been stopped. Hours later, the battle was over. The Krell fleet retreated, leaving behind their disabled ships, including the precious missile carrier. In the aftermath, the Confederation Council gathered to discuss their next move. Many representatives called for a counterattack on the Krell homeworld. "They tried to destroy Earth," the Vraxian general argued. "We should do the same to them." All eyes turned to Commander Jin, the hero of the battle. She stood before them, still in her battle uniform. "We could do that," she admitted. "We have their weapon now. We could use it against them." The room fell silent, waiting for her next words. "But we won't," Jin said firmly, "because that's not who we are. That's not why we fight." 1 month after the battle for Earth, representatives from all worlds gathered on the Confederation's central station. The massive meeting hall was filled beyond capacity. At one end sat the Confederation Council. At the other end, a delegation of Krell. Not the Emperor and his loyal generals. They had been overthrown in the rebellion that followed their failed attack. These were the new leaders of the Krell, many of whom had defected during the war. The lead Krell, his scales showing age and wisdom, looked around nervously. "We expected execution, not talks." Ji Woo, now head of the Confederation diplomatic team, smiled. "That's not how we do things." "The humans insisted on these peace talks," grumbled the Vraxian representative. "Many of us wanted harsher punishment." The meeting began formally, with both sides stating their positions. The new Krell government offered to return all captured territory and pay for damages caused by the war. In return, they asked only to be left in peace, expecting nothing more. "Is that all you ask for?" Jiwu said with surprise. "Just to be left alone." "What else could we expect?" asked the lead Krell. "We tried to destroy your world." "Rehabilitation," said a familiar voice. Captain Daho, who had represented humanity during First Contact years ago, stepped forward. "Help rebuilding your society. Eventually, membership in the Confederation as equals." The Krell delegation looked shocked. Even some Confederation representatives seemed surprised by this generosity. "You would trust us again?" asked the Krell leader, disbelief in his voice. "Trust must be earned," Daho admitted, "but everyone deserves the chance to earn it." After days of negotiation, a peace treaty was signed. The Krell War was officially over. Later, at a small gathering to celebrate the peace, many alien representatives approached the humans with questions. Tallow, who had documented the entire conflict, spoke for many when he asked, "I still don't fully understand. Throughout this war, humans have surprised us. You prepared for war while preaching peace. You fought with restraint when provoked. You offered mercy when victorious. What is the true human philosophy?" Daho looked around at his fellow humans. Jiwu the diplomat, Admiral Min, Commander's Han, and Jin, Colonel Kita, Major Yuma, and Captain Yun, before answering. "We don't say violence is not the answer because we're afraid of fighting," he explained. "We say it because we've become experts at ending conflicts permanently." "Explain," requested the council leader. "In our history, we fought countless wars," Daho continued. "Each victory planted the seeds of the next conflict. Each humiliation created new enemies. Each destroyed city left people vowing revenge." Jiwu stepped forward. "We learned that victory through destruction only pauses problems. The next generation inherits the same conflicts, the same hatreds. So we developed better answers," added Admiral Min. "Understanding, justice, rehabilitation, reconciliation. But you maintain powerful weapons," said the Vraxian. "You train for war." "Because not everyone has learned these lessons yet," Commander Jin explained. "We must be ready to defend ourselves and others." "I think I finally understand," Tallow said slowly. "You're not peaceful because you're weak. We're peaceful because we've discovered it's the ultimate strength," Daho finished. The gathering continued late into the night, with humans explaining their philosophy to curious aliens. In one corner, Tallow spoke quietly with Jiwu. "I've been documenting everything since First Contact," the historian said. "I'm calling it the human approach to conflict. I believe it will change how the galaxy thinks about war and peace." "I hope so," Jiwu replied, "because there will always be conflicts. The question is how we resolve them." Later, as the station's lights dimmed to simulate night, Daho stood at a viewing window, looking out at the stars. He remembered his first meeting with Ambassador Lix years ago, when the alien had been so confused by humanity's insistence that violence wasn't the answer. Now the galaxy was beginning to understand. Humans hadn't abandoned violence because they were weak. They had moved beyond it because they had found something stronger. Peace through understanding wasn't just a nice idea. It was the most powerful force in the universe.